Good evening, Super League fans. Hope you're all well. Stealing Palmer's introduction there, or at least trying to. I have got Joe Palmer with me. Hello, Joe.
Hello.
And I've got Ryan Aldred with me as well, I think. Ryan, are you there as well?
I am indeed, yes. How you doing?
Very well, thanks. Very well, thanks. So, guys, excited to have both of you back. So this is a bit of a deja vu almost. Same lineup as last week for the review show. What did you make in general of the weekend's action? We'll run through the games shortly, but what did you make of it, Joe? If I can come to you first.
I think it was another week full of goals. It's too early to say whether or not there was some shocks about, but I think what has become clear is that, although we're only 2 games in, there's no runaway performer as yet. I think when we come on to it, I think out of the 14 teams, I think I make it 11 have all registered a win now. Only 3 are undefeated. So, it just goes to show anyone can beat anyone at the moment, and we'll see what we in a few games time whether or not anyone becomes a bit of a runaway leader like we had in the previous format of the game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, it'll be interesting to see. Definitely. I mean, there was definitely some games and some goals. A little bit more of an even spread with home and away wins than we had in the first week. But it was definitely interesting. I'm not going to come to you, Ryan. Well, I am, but I'm going to do it in the form of the first game because you were first up on the evening, or Bolton Phoenix were first up. Perhaps not the result that you had hoped for.
No, not at all. As you know, I was up in Glasgow for the weekend, so I was with a few friends actually, and was like I had it on silent the game, but I was absolutely gutted as it was going on. All my mates were taking the mick out of me. Then I watched the broadcast in full again yesterday. First off, say congratulations to Andreas. Valen were, they were clinical. Obviously, I don't know. Maybe I was a little bit naive going with the same tactic as in the home game against Sloths the week before. But yeah, the red card.
Yeah, I was gonna say
set me off on a kind of a downward spiral there. And
an early red card is never what you want.
Yeah, I don't know how much to kind of look into each individual player's performance and say, this was good, this was bad, kind of thing. Because with your goalkeeper being sent off, it kind of throws the tactic out the window. It throws, So I was a little bit frustrated, but I think if I was Andreas, I'd be delighted with his team's performance. His front three look strong.
Mm-hmm.
It was.
He definitely did well. No, he definitely did well. I think looking at your squad, of course, the poor performance, not poor performance, he didn't really have a chance to do anything, the keeper, but that's never ideal. And of course, it also meant that the tactic had to be amended a little bit to accommodate a backup keeper coming on. Casillas did relatively well, to be fair. He got away with a 7. Thierry Henry came on for reasons unknown, but Shearer was at a 5, so why not?
Yeah. I think the Henry substitution is one I think I mentioned in the chat earlier today. Is that something I mentioned to do week 1? I was kind of glad when Henry came on. He's a player who is going to play for me this season. I just wanted to see what Fowler and Shearer would be like. I think going forward, if I start with one up top, it may be Henry in future games, but.
That was going to be my next question. I mean, we've seen Fowler and Shearer. I don't know how people rate the various players, obviously, but Thierry Henry seems like an obvious starter. But it's obviously your decision as a manager. He came on, he got a 7, he got a goal. Fowler scored in the first one, so perhaps Henry and Fowler are perhaps in the strongest position at the moment.
Yeah, looking ahead at the weekend, I probably. More than like, I've been messing around with the formation a little bit, so I don't know whether to go with, in essence, 1 or 3 up top at the minute. I probably won't go with 2. But Henry's, unless he gets injured, is definitely a certain starter.
Well, that'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see what you come up with. We'll speak briefly about your upcoming fixtures a little bit later on. So not much to say. with regards to our Swedish friends, our Swedish contingent, Palmer, how do you see that? I mean, we've got Cafu obviously doing very very well, but the rest of the team also performing really quite well. And Andreas gave a good account of himself against Chudley Cannons in the first round as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think that's if you're looking at those attributes, they're pretty good. All 1 to 11. It was a bit unfortunate that he came across Timmy in the first game, but I think we all identified that he's pretty much a shrewd operator there. And I think it's early days again to say, but he looks like he's assembled a squad there that should get in the top 6. He's got Shevchenko in there, which is always a bonus, isn't it? Only Alf, bizarrely, is the only person that doesn't seem to be able to get a tune out of him. But it's a good display. Just on Ryan's point, with Nick Matullen getting sent off there, he was actually my backup keeper at Shadwell, and he was an absolute liability for us. Whenever Super Frankie was away in Australian duties, Nick Matullen would come in and either get sent off or get a 5. So I did laugh when it was first game on, and 10 minutes in he saw red. It's a bit of.
I would say on that point, like it just me when my home says it's different than in the Super League. I mean, I'd rate Nick Matullen above Costanzo. I mean, in my home saves, he's 10 times the player. But I understand that. I mean, Super League form is somewhat different, and and then you had Costanzo. He had a world-class season last year, one of the best 3 in the league, and Nick Matullen didn't get a look in. But I think it's it kind of Stod's law really. He did all right in the first game, although he didn't have a shot. He didn't really have a shot to save against the Sloths. I'd rather him have let the goal in than
getting sent off. Yeah, that's often the case, isn't it? That you look at that in hindsight and said he could have just let that guy score, and then everyone would have been happy. On the topic of scoring, I mean, the penalty was obviously saved. The following penalty. Maybe for the last point on this game, if you had Shevchenko in your squad, would you set Totti as your penalty taker?
Who are you asking?
Either.
No for me.
It's a no from you. Yeah, Ryan.
I'd have a look at the stats and pick up what Shevchenko stands. He was your main man striking, but I do some. I always have a look into it. Really, I've got Veron as my penalty taker, and you might look at the stats and think that maybe Shearer or Figo should be taking the penalties, but Veron for me is it's not always an obvious choice to become penalty taker. I mean, you look at set pieces and finishing and power.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just the obvious single stat which says this man's going to be a good penalty taker.
Not one you can see anyway. Either way, I think Andreas will be very happy with that. You will perhaps not be, but you can bounce back next week. I'm fairly certain.
I've got Timmy next week, so let's not count our chickens.
We'll see how well that goes. If we then move on to our blog author and co-commentator at the weekend, Mr. Fife, and his Swindon Devils. What do you think, Palmer? Let's come to you first. Swindon had a new attacking formation. I think someone's been mentioning things about their formation in the past. What did you make of it? They were a little bit more like the old Haller tactic, I think some people pointed out.
Yeah, that's right. And I say it's a bit of a funny one because I panned him last week for more or less fronting up against Hoddesdon. We all knew how Hods were going to line up, and he went sort of man for man against that. I think he knew how Timmy was going to line up, and he's done something a little different. Although it was the Haller formation. I see he's done a video today that he's going to he's looking at again tweaking it for us, and assuming we're going to play one at the back. And I think I don't know. I suppose initially I was a bit harsh on him, thinking, look, stop thinking about what the opposition are going to do. Just play your own game. That's how I maybe played it in the first 2 or 3 seasons. But I think now that everyone's got such a unique style of play, I mean, when you're playing Hull's what you're going to get. When you're playing Astor, you know what you're going to be coming against. Mm-hmm. So I suppose you do have to tailor a formation where you think you can beat them. I think the thing which Fifey did against Hodds in that first game, he fronted up against them. And for me, he was just trying not to lose that game rather than trying to win it.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas fair play to him against Chudley. Again, he knew how Timmy was going to play, but he played something a little bit different. It was quite attacking. It was obviously the Haller formation of old, which was successful. And he's actually putting a pretty decent account for himself there. I know there's a couple of 5s and 6s there, but I think he more,
looking at the stats,
I think he more or less held his own. He was just a bit unlucky, really.
Mm-hmm. True.
I think a draw would have been funny. A draw would have been not funny, is the wrong way. Would have been absolutely looking at the shots on target. I thought probably deserved just a point, really.
Yeah, I mean, looking at it, I think we maybe discussed it briefly on the show itself. I mean, Matt Holland's letting him down there, isn't he? I mean, with the midfield in general, is not the best. I mean, that was really what made the difference for me. If you look at the player ratings for the two sides, yeah, Gilberto Silva, Matt Holland, even Zidane's only getting a 6. And then if you look at sort of the equivalents they're up against over on the other side, I know Matt Kerr only got a 7, but you've got Van Bommel with a 10, Steve Finnan. So Clive got a goal, but
I think in Fifey's defence, when I met him the other week, I mean, unlike a lot of us, he doesn't have the game currently installed on his laptop. He plays it from memory. And if you believe him that he is about 10 years younger than the rest of us, he must have been playing this game when he was about 8 rather than 18. So he's got maybe a bit of a nostalgic view that players like, yes, Zidane was class in real life. Is he that good in this game? Likes of Matt Holland, and I've ribbed him before about Cambiasso. He's a decent player, but he's not an absolute worldie on this. So to give him his dues. He isn't like Alf, where he's sort of playing every single day of the week and trying different things out. He's doing a lot from memory, and he's doing all these blogs and stuff. So he's doing a decent job there. He's still appalling at it, but he does his best.
Yeah.
I'm reading his comments he's putting in.
I was going to say you've been far too kind. You've been far too kind there. So so it's probably got
one thing I would pick up on about the tactic situation. It does seem that a lot of the more established players in the league have the kind of established tactic. I think Palmer mentioned Tsigalko with his half track and Alf with his kind of internal, with these two attacking midfielders going inwards. Even yourself, Palmer, with your one at the back. Whereas it does seem that, I don't know if Fifey kind of does try and, he's not really set about what his best 11 is, just playing his team without worrying about his opposition. Is he going to change that, his lineup, his tactic each week, depending on who he's against? It's whether he's got the confidence that he can put a tactic out and man up against anyone in the league.
Yeah, I think
he played the same formation pretty much all last season, and the first half dozen games he was absolutely battering everyone. It was like quite worrying that he was going to get in the top 6. Even I predicted he would do, and then obviously had the catastrophic fallout towards the end. But
what went wrong in your opinion?
Nothing different, but I don't know what it is about this game. It's somehow does it find you out, or do the other managers find you out and find a way past you? I don't know. It's just
I think there's always a risk of going a little bit stale. I think you should really change it up unless you have like a really sort of, I mean, you can't say that for Alpha obviously, but unless you've got a really certain formula and you've got really the good players and you just have to stick with it. If you're making like 1 or 2 substitutions, making the odd tweak here and there, and then but persisting with like a standard formation, then perhaps you should look at it. But it all depends on the results, obviously. If the results are going your way, then you should be fine. But Timmy made a few changes for Chudley. Ryan, you're up against them next. Do you see any weaknesses? Do you see any points where you're thinking we could utilize that, or was it? I mean, they obviously benefited hugely from Van Bommel playing a pretty brilliant game, but what gives you hope?
He's got a solid 11. I'm hoping he goes with Westerveld again. He's been a quality keeper on a few of my saves, but he is very much hit and miss. That's probably the same I'd say about Ibrahimovic. He can be absolutely class, but he can be not great. I don't think Baumer's brilliant at the start. I think after a couple of seasons, he's world class. Tim mentioned himself, Steve Finnan. If he gets another run out, I'll be happy. But he scored a 9 last week, so I'm not too sure. I think the idea is that his 11, I know Tim, he's got a lot of respect from a lot of the more established managers in the thing. His 11 for me isn't one of the top 6 11s. Now, he's more than likely because of the comments of the other more established members, one of the top 6 managers.
Mm-hmm.
But it's whether I'm at home, I can get my tactics working. I think that probably my starting 11 is as strong on paper as his. Whether I'm as tactically astute at this point in my Super League kind of journey as he is, then remains to be seen. But he's played 2-1-2, so.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it'll be a good test for you, but he hasn't put anyone away, so to speak. Yeah, it's been 2-1-2-1 against both Swindon and against Valen. So it's been a good start for the Cannons, I think, but not blown anyone away quite yet, and not creating like the huge amount of chances that you might have expected, but still getting a good result. I don't think anyone would argue with that. And 2 games, 2 wins. It's also something. It's also a job done, isn't it? So all in all, I think, yeah, I mean, as you mentioned, maybe funny is the wrong word, but you could have perhaps seen a draw there, just looking at the actual stats from the game itself, but looking at the performance from the individual players. If you compare the Swindon stats to the Chudley Cannon stats, then maybe 2-1 looks slightly more fair, if you want to call it that. Moving on to the Sloths. They were probably the worst team in the first round. To be fair, they had a slightly better go at it this time. Ryan, if I come to you first this time, if you wanna say what you made of this game. I mean, Alf obviously persisting with his tactics, so not much to say there. Sloths changed it around a little bit after going. I mean, we discussed it on the first show. It was not so good.
Yeah, well, I think the one that was shocked everyone was his Crespo on the bench. I think he is generally established as kind of recommended by most people who play the game, probably the top striker on the game. So for him to be on the bench, Andres D'Alessandro, top second midfielder on the bench. Tsigalko for me isn't Super League quality. Neither's Tsigalko. I think, and again, his tactic is. I think if you don't know if you want to get up on screen, but no arrows again. I don't know. I think he needs to maybe think outside the box. Maybe I don't know. Have a browse online at some of the different tactics that people use, and have a look at the different performances. I think he's the only one in the league who doesn't have any arrows. So, and yeah, he hasn't scored a goal yet. So
yeah, I was going to say. I mean, they obviously got a much better result, and I think maybe I mean, it's the beginning of something here, the tactic, isn't it? It's along the lines of Alf of Thiago with the Hull's tactics with the narrow formation, which is a good starting point. There's nothing wrong with that, but maybe a little bit more work into it, and then hopefully for Sloths.
Whether he thought playing a narrow formation he could cancel out Alf. Because Alf doesn't usually play any wide players.
Yeah, I don't think that's worked.
But if you do that, I think you've got to be somewhere near man to man, and I don't think Somerset's loss defensively is as good as Alf man to man.
No, that's.
I like Van Bronckhorst. I think Rivaldo can do a job for a couple of seasons. I think Warnes and Yepes are good players. Obviously, Buffon's a great keeper, but I think you just got too many, which I would class as second string players in his starting lineup. Where that's kind of the opposite with Alf and us. I mean, because as Palmer's alluded to on a few occasions, you don't need a fantastic 24. You need a solid team of starters, a couple of people to come in every now and again. But I think he's got maybe 6 starters. Maybe he's got 7 or 8 starters, but only 6 that he can play at a time because they're all attacking.
Yeah, they're overlapping each other a little bit in those positions. I mean, Brosic and Vieri obviously good players, but Crespo on the bench, yeah, then maybe it would have been nice to have Brosic and Vieri up front, and then like a super defensive midfielder or something like that. I get your point there. I mean, the worry.
I offered to take Crespo off him a few times, but
well, funny how that he didn't go with that. Well, we'll see what happens. Joe. Alf is so is this what are we watching here? Is this Astra Athletic or is it Stackington that we're looking at here? 1-0 away from home. That looks like a second half of the season result for Alf's boys.
I think in the second half, I think when Al's gone to this four up front, I think he was getting quite high scoring games home and away. I think it was the early days of Stackinson where he was pretty, I say, boring, getting 1-0 wins. But this was an early Stackinson performance from me from last season. I mean, don't get me wrong, this team is way better than Stackinson. I mean, it's just got eights and sevens listed across there. I think Al's obviously, unlike most, has had a good run at it. He's obviously edited a team which he's enjoying on his own save. Really, it's quite interesting to watch. Really, but yeah, this is a better team than Stackinson. I think if you put the two, Stackinson versus Astor, it'd be quite interesting. It'll probably edit for us next.
I was going to say that's a job for you, Al, for the rest of the week. We'd like to see that, please.
I think Astor win all day long in that game, to be honest. Interesting that I don't know how long Hasselbank will be out for, but I forget who he's got. He's got Nikolai, hasn't he? And I think he's got another top draw striker in there as well.
Right, so he's out for 2 weeks with a broken toe. This is at game day, so we're up at the 13th, so he'll be out for so for this one he'll be out for the 20th. He might be back for the 3rd of November, but he'll be out for the next two anyway.
I've had Nikolai playing world class on a few home saves, so I don't think he's got. I think he's got a solid replacement there. Whether he might not be the same quality as Hasselbank at the start, but he's a good player. Definitely.
I mean, if you look at what
19 at the start of this game, or
20, he is, but if you look at what Alf's gotten out of him in the preseason home save thing that he's done, then he looks like an adequate replacement. I mean, perhaps not as good, but he's still going to get, as we saw in the first game, he's probably still going to get goals from midfield with Ortega and Del Piero. Alan Smith got 2 in his first game, 1 on this one, and if Nicolau can chip in with 1 or 2 over the next 2 weeks, then I don't think he'll be too concerned.
I think he might put Del Piero up top and potentially putting Janino in or one of his other reserves. I don't know. He's got options, as you said. He's got options.
The one that interests me is Marcus Babel, who was drawn with us in the draft, and Alf came into him. I forgot who I got in return for Babel, but he's somebody that I never really signed on the game, but he's obviously starting for him and got an 8 there. So, but when you look across and he's got the likes of Nestor alongside him, is that a bit of a weak link at centre half there? I'm not sure. But it's telling. I mean, we're 2 games in, and you've got Alf and Timmy both unbeaten. You've got the guy that's, as say, assembled a squad for his own save and putting hours into it and doing a great job. And then you've got Timmy, who, without arse licking him as people think, and Ryan's alluded to, I do think he's probably the most competent manager in the Super League. He's the one that's sort of changed the face by bringing in new formations and ultimately is why Haller did so well last year, because they ripped off a tactic Timmy created. So
yeah, well, I mean, so
you'll love to hear that.
I'm waiting for the comments here.
Yeah, no, I think, and I mean, I think fair result. If we have to sum it up at the end, if I have to sort of say, was it a fair result? Yes or no? Absolutely. Slightly unusual that
no question.
with both of them playing a super narrow formation, that one side had 3 throw-ins and the other one had 18. I'm not entirely sure what that says about misplaced passes, but in the end, I think Astor dominated the game and they had the most chances. Man of the match was Buffon with a 9. So I think Alf will be happy with that, but I think that maybe Rob will take some kind of consolation from the fact that they didn't concede 6 like Hooligans did, and it didn't get any worse. I mean, to be fair, Buffon, as I said, got a 9, but it was still, it's a huge improvement from the first time out.
Yeah.
Right, and then, I mean, you mentioned earlier, Palmer, that it was perhaps early to say if there's any shocks of the week. I don't know if it quite qualifies as a shock, but I was a little bit surprised at this one. Midlothian taking the win there.
Yeah, well, we had Kieran last week as I suppose he got dreaded Manager of the Month award, Manager of the Week award, and then ultimately got defeated in his next game there. You look at his average ratings at Churchtown; they're not, attacking wise, they're not great, but defensively, he's got lots of 8s and 9s in there. But Midlothian, I'm quite pleased with him here because they lined up against us in the kind of the half track formation. I know they've did something fundamentally different for this game. I'm hopefully can bring up the formation, Martin, but I can't quite remember what it was. But I know it's completely different. So fair play to me.
You not just click on the, or is that not against the rules to click on the name?
What are we doing here? Right. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that I remember this now. Yeah. So he put he kind of went a little bit Parma-Thanaikos here with a 5 across the middle there.
2 at the rear.
Two at the rear this time. Yeah. So, but yeah, I mean, it worked for him. He kept a clean sheet against Kieran's mob, who scored 4 last time out.
Yeah.
Or 3, certainly 3. So yeah, I was pleased and chuffed for him that he got the win there. I think Penza got the goal.
Yeah, he did.
He's just a beast in this, and I can fully expect him to be leading the scorer. I suppose what I worry about Midlothian is if he does get injured. I rave on about Adolfo, but who is waiting in the wings up front?
Well, he's got Kessman as well. To be honest, I mean, I think that was he. I think he does worry a little bit about the depth in the squad. So if anyone's got any spare strikers to flock, then maybe he'll be looking for a deal come December time. However, with Kessman coming back, I think he can maybe play with the 2 up front and Kewell behind them. Maybe I'm not sure if Grant is really good enough, but well, we'll see.
Title winner, isn't he, Grant? Title winner.
Yeah, but many odd things happen in the league. so yeah. But both sides did really well defensively. Ryan, any explanation what went wrong for Churchtown, or was it just one of those things? I mean, as you can see, the match was incredibly even. I mean, 7 shots each. One Midlothian had 3, Churchtown had 4 on target. Is there anything for them to worry about, or was it just unlucky that they didn't put away just one of their shots?
Yeah, it's a strange one because if you remember to week 1, they were away at home to the Dragons, and they were clinical. I think that they had the same amount of shots on target as the Dragons and won 4-0. And then this week it's the complete opposite, where they haven't put any away. I don't think they've got anything to worry about defensively. I think they've got great defense, as do Midlothian. They've got defenders to spare. He needs to kind of get Van Nistelrooy and Robin working somehow. To make sure that this team is going to have a successful season, because I don't think he's going to have any trouble defensively. So if you can get Van Nistelrooy scoring, if you can get Robin assisting, he'll definitely be a challenger. If he doesn't, then he'll be a 7th or 8th player. I think I fancy him though. I think he's a good manager. He'll sort it out.
And you've got faith in Van Nistelrooy, or what do you think?
I think he's. I think it's been alluded to on the chat this week. On everyone's home save, he's one of the top 3 or 4 strikers on the game. And from what I gather, he's never really cut it in the Super League. So whether he's always been misused, or I think one of my friends we were chatting to about the weekend says he's usually used best alone, where a lot of people in Super League play 2 or sometimes 3 strikers, and that doesn't really suit Mr. Roy. Yeah, I think if you can get him scoring goals, then he's going to be a threat. I like Van Nistelrooy. I think our home save he's top 3 or 4 strikers.
Yeah. No. Well, we'll see if he comes good later on in the season. I mean, solid defensive display for both teams actually, and then just the quality of Mpenza just told and got Midlothian the win. So I think I mean, obviously Kieran will be slightly disappointed, and I think Ian will be delighted to pick up 3 points. I mean, you're a new manager coming into the league. First 3 points is always good. And proven Fifey and I wrong about playing Eric Addo on as a left back. That still doesn't make sense. But he got an 8, so you can't say fairer than that. arguably game of the weekend coming up. Palmer, what do you think? 4-4 with hooligans.
Yeah, so I think for the watching fans, I think definitely the game of the night. I'm not just saying that because it's my team are in there, but I have to admit I felt a little bit of a fraud or slightly underwhelmed with this one. Now I know it sounds a bit odd that we've scored there in the last minute to get a draw, but it all sort of changed on this sending off. And I know we're probably going to talk about in-game changes later on, but when Judge Artus got sent off, you obviously as chairman made some changes, and that wasn't the change which I put on the chat what I wanted to happen. You did something differently, and we'll never know whether or not what I'd have done would have result. We were drawing at the time, and they scored from the resulting free kick, I think. But we'll never know whether or not the change I was going to make would have won or lost or drawn still.
Mm-hmm.
Ultimately, it finished in a draw, and that's when the red card happened, it was a draw. So yeah, I didn't really comment on it much on the night, and I still haven't, because I've been mega busy at work. But it's kind of, I feel like a bit of a fraud that I've got a draw out of that one, because that's not how I'd have played it out in my own game. So
yeah, well, I did see that you put up on the chat that you would just leave it as it was. I think was your initial response. I'd kind of already started pushing people around, and I hadn't really given anyone else the benefit of having a decision made on stream. So I thought it was better that I just went with a decision, and then we could discuss it. So it's so it's the same for everyone. I won't say it's fair for everyone, but then it'll be the same for everyone, whatever we decide to do. But we can pick up that conversation after the games for sure. I think it's something that we can perhaps have an agreement on, and I can see most of the other managers are in the chat, so maybe they can contribute there. As well.
Yeah, but I mean, back to your point. I mean, it was a great game. I mean, I think Hull's led 4 times, isn't it? And
yes.
We scored in injury time in both halves. We obviously had a man sent off. I commented on the night. You look at the names on the left, and you've got 3 real life legends of the game, and then all my stories. You're thinking, who are that lot?
Who are these people? If you don't play the game, then I mean, for a dedicated champ manager player, it's obviously there's not a single one out there. They're all superstars, aren't they? But
yeah.
but to the uninitiated, that does look a little bit odd. I would agree. It looks as if you've stolen it there, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I said last week I'd snap your hand off for a draw with hooligans, and ultimately it's what we got. They always seem to find a way past us. Worryingly for me, I think that's the first time that one of the backs let in more than a goal again. Maybe I might have let in 2 before, but certainly I've never had 4 going against it. So I need to think about that one going forward.
To be fair, with the 4 goals going in, I mean Beckham is obviously. I personally don't particularly like him in the game. I rarely. I mean, I don't ever play at a high enough level to buy these people anyway. But I don't really think that much of him in the game or in real life for that matter. But he definitely came up with the goods. And then you've got Ronaldinho. I mean, it's also a tricky one to defend against, even with that solid defensive midfielder stack that you've got. So perhaps not completely unfair. And you can see with them 2 shots each and a bunch of there's goals in that team, isn't there, in the hooligan side, even if the defense might be a little bit shaky at times.
Yeah, and I've said it before. I mean, Tsigalko has assembled such a good squad there. I just wish he would just try something new from a formation and just hope it works, because the half track, I don't think it has. He's not beat. I think he got in the playoffs in season 1 of the original one, but he's never been anywhere near about that. I think obviously it works against AI or whatever you call computer players, but against all these wacky, crazy formations we all play as human managers, is should he try something a bit different, like a lot of us really are. So
true. And your own side's performance overall, I mean, you can't be unhappy, can you?
I can't be unhappy. I think we were lucky to get a point. I think Thiago's had the better ratings there, but I think as think someone commented, when you've got Nicky Ferenko, there's always that chance, isn't there? And it was, I said at the beginning, everyone in my team was up for sale in the draft apart from him. I'd listen to offers for anyone, but I just know how good he is. Nothing was going to pry him away.
Nothing was going to replace him. Jorgatos, will you be able to replace him? Have you got any backup that you can think of?
Not really. So I know Fifey's commenting about a formation that he's going to do, whether or not he does or not, whether it's mind games. But I think I have to question whether or not I go one at the back after conceding 4 again.
You've got young,
especially when Fifey does score. Fifey does know where the back of the net is. He does score goals, so
that is true.
We might have to do something a bit different.
You've got young Ashley. You've got young Ashley.
Yeah, young Ashley live. Yeah, I'm not sure if he's ready yet, but.
Right. Well, I'm sure you'll come up with something. That was going to be my last question, whether one at the back would remain for the next game coming up. But of course, you might have to rejig that, considering the suspension.
At the end of the day, we didn't lose the game. We played 20 minutes with 10 men away against a good hooligans team. So it's not the death knell of one at the back, and it will certainly be used again in future. Just depends when
and the opposition. Yeah. Well,
I think quickly add something on that game.
Of course,
what do you call it? I think if you look back at the first game, I think Hooligans conceded 4 or 5 against Alf.
6.
And then he's conceded 6 even, and he's conceded another 4 there. I think there's definitely a bit of scope for change there. Otherwise, if he's conceding,
I mean,
an average of 5 a week, he's not going to win many, no matter who he's got going forward.
Yeah, keeper's got a 5. Keeper's got a 5.5 average and led in 10 goals in 2 games. I mean, I know Sol Campbell got sent off in the first game, and I kind of maybe didn't do the 100% correct substitution there, but still, I mean, that's a lot of goals to concede. You're right. So that's something too.
Is Kiotis, I think I call him. Is he good enough for a Super League starter season 1?
I mean, I would personally put Stefan Klose in, but that's more based on like reality rather than how they are in the game. So I don't know. That might be a poor decision on my side, but I personally rate the German keepers over the Greek ones.
I completely agree with you.
I've never been a fan of. I mean, it's perhaps controversial for the chairman of the Super League with such stars as Nicky Ferenko and Tsigalko and all these guys, but I have never been a fan of these players, keepers that have these kind of stats that are good, but that aren't good in the real world. I've never been. So even if I had them, I wouldn't personally play them. But you've got to play to win, haven't you? So maybe he is good.
My kind of experience of Kiotis is generally you pick him up in the old Division 2 kind of thing, relatively cheap, or maybe a sub-keeper in Division 1. You get to the Premier League, and after a couple of seasons, he's your new starter because he does develop. But I don't know what age he is at the start of the game, but he's definitely not at his full potential.
Well, I think
that's going to be an issue. I think if he doesn't arrest that in the early in the season.
Yeah, I mean, Klose is there. I mean, he should be. The game certainly thinks so. Remember, all the squad numbers, player numbers are auto-assigned, so the computer definitely rates Klose over Kiotis, but we'll see. And I can see in the comments that Andreas is agreeing with you that you need like 1.5, 2 seasons probably before Kiotis is really at the level that you'd expect. But we'll see if he makes any changes for the next game. I think he's away. He's in Wales next time out, so it'll be interesting to see what he comes up with there. Speaking of Wales, that's where we're going next. I was going to say Midlothian was maybe the one of the performances of the week, but this was a great result for Jamie as well against the much fancied Ardsley Celtic. Ryan, what do you think? Were the Dragons impressive here, or were Ardsley just a little bit not at the races, or both?
It's probably a bit of both, yeah. I think it was a bit of commentator's curse as well with you and Fifey slagging off Robbie Keane. You got. I think Jamie's put a solid performance out there. 3 goals from Robbie Keane. I think Ardsley are fancied, but you're proving right there they are beatable. they may be strong in areas, but they're not world beaters throughout this side. And I think that Jamie's got a few world beaters in himself. I think that although he's not had the best couple of games, Montella's going to come good. Kaladze is a proven Super League legend, as is Tomasi, and Rustico is one of the best defenders on the game. So I think he's not going to be struggling near the bottom this season, not with that. So I don't think it's that big a surprise.
Yeah. Five, you might pick up on it in the blog. Well, I hope he will, because I've sent him screenshots for it. But I think Rustico is already apart from maybe Roy Keane, he is miles ahead of everyone in tackles per game. So I think he's definitely going to do quite well. Robbie Keane scoring 3 goals from central. I will maintain my position that Robbie Keane is not an AMC, and he should not be scoring 3 goals from that position. So I don't know how that happened, but if you look at the stats for the rest of the team, they've done well, haven't they? Really. Joe, if you look at Ardsley's side, it's really only the 2 central defensive midfielders. It's Milevski and Vieira that can sort of hold their heads up and say they did enough. The rest of them, not really good enough.
No, definitely not. Not from Tristan, especially. You expect the goals. Go on, pal. I'll let you go.
Yeah, I mean, it was poor from Ardsley, wasn't it? The other night, beating BTEC with 9 men. I said at the time, was it one of those freak results? You look at the scores there. I mean, he's just got panned by Jamie, who we were all slagging off this time last week, weren't we? To be fair, Jamie's gone from probably donkey of the week to manager of the week there. But I mean, I would say that it's probably, looking at every player's attributes there, that this is the best performance of the week from any. But he's got so many 6s and 7s, and just there's no 9. There's just no. Yeah, Vieira and Milevski have got an 8, but how they get that when they've lost 3-0?
I mean, they're the two defensive midfielders, aren't they? And the attacking midfielder of the other team score 3 goals, and they still get 8s. That's perhaps also a little bit. It's one of the quirks of the game, I think. Unlucky not to get anything out of Tristan. I mean, I don't rate him, but I don't, as Timmy regularly points out, I don't know anything about the game. Tristan, does anyone rate him? I'm not sure. Is he good?
Well, he scored. Did he score 2 in the first game and missed a penalty, or certainly scored 1 and missed a penalty?
Yeah.
It was somebody I was.
True, yeah.
I think Hodgie was, dangling in front of me for someone, and I did think about it.
I think, Martin. I think you might be still similar to.
I think the next.
Breaking up a little bit for me.
I think we're losing.
Yeah,
we're losing you, Joe. Sorry.
Yeah, can you hear me now? Sorry about that.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
Coming through all clear.
Right. Yeah. It's one. He had a good win first time out. Did Hodgie? Bad second result. Don't know who he's got coming up, but it's a big one for him next time out. I don't think you can read too much into one result, but. No,
he's at home to Sloths, so there's a chance there for redemption for some of the guys. But we'll see. I mean, overall, fair result. Outplayed is maybe a strong word, but certainly much more efficient with the finishing. 11 shots, 7 on target for the Dragons, and versus 9 and only 2 on target for Ardsley. So perhaps not that surprising looking at the stats. Riquelme injured. Sorry?
Yeah, so one thing I will pick up on that, just quickly. I know you, like myself, kind of made me have more history playing through the updates rather than the original game. And I know Tristan on the updates, I think, is an AMC, and he's awful. I think the other player you mentioned is Beckham, and he's definitely not as good on the updates to the game as he is on the original game. So I don't know if it's my memory of the original game. I've just started playing the original game now, and Tristan does seem like a serious player, where I know he never really appeared on any of the updates for me.
Yeah, that's probably our lack of experience there with the ODB. But that's perhaps true. Last word on Riquelme or Darren Anderton. Who do you fancy for spending the the most time on the operating table? That's a shame, isn't it? 10 minutes out, and that's it for him.
Yeah. How long's he? How long's he gone
I
for?
think he's back. 2 weeks with a twisted knee, so he will miss this one for sure. He will miss this one. He will possibly be back for their away trip to Sweden in a couple of weeks' time. So yeah.
Never easy going to Sweden. Well, yeah, I think he's a class act if you can keep him fit. If you can't keep him fit, then it's a bit pointless having him. So I know he was over the moon to get hold of him. I think he did trade with Valen, and I think he was pretty happy. I think he thought he got the better end of. I think it was a double swap, and I think he thought he got the better end of both trades there.
Right.
But you've got to keep Riquelme fit, otherwise there's no point in having him.
Yeah. And considering that Andreas clearly mentioned that he was never not going to play Totti, then he doesn't really have any use. Riquelme would sit there as a backup. Yeah, he would have no use for him. Really, he'd be a very expensive player on the bench. And as Palmer mentioned earlier, you really need like a strong starting 11, and then you can kind of focus on the bench after that. So if he was lacking, in defense or whatever, he swapped Riquelme for a player that he really needed in another position, then perhaps that was a good bit of business. Last game of the night was BTEC at home to the Hornets. I don't know where to start with this one. It was a good result for BTEC, obviously after the slightly challenging situation that they had last week with a dramatic 4-2 defeat. Good result for them. Who wants to go first? Who wants to take BTEC and who wants to take the Hornets? You can take one. You can take one each.
Go on, Ryan. I'll let you go.
Right, yeah, I'll talk about the Hornets. The franchise. Yeah, you've got to click on. You've got an interesting tactic this week. It was something. Yeah, so I think I'll be honest, the first time I've seen this, I think but it looked like especially in the first half, he was going to pull off. I think he's got one of the best strikers in the game in Batistuta. I think he'll. Obviously, after the controversial tactics this week, he went for something different. It is something different. Whether I'm a huge fan of McManaman, whether it's if you're playing just one in the centre back, it's worth going like Joe does and having the five across the defensive midfield rather than a left back and a right back. It's certainly something I've never seen before, and I think in the first half it looked like it was going all right, but then holes began to appear in the second half, and Ian came through.
Yeah, Batistuta. I don't want to dwell on him for too long, but he's I don't know how he fares over the next couple of seasons, but certainly in the first season he's got to be among the players that you have to consider for a top scorer if he's in a team that scores goals.
He's a class act for Rome at the start of the game. They're one of the big teams at the start of the game, and he's one of the reasons why.
Yeah. And Palmer, what do you reckon?
Just on Hoddesdon's, that he was taking a piss out of my trainers earlier, but that's an absolutely honking formation there. Do not like it one bit. What really surprised me, other than the disgusting lineup, was that Tsigalko got binned. I'm not sure who came in for him. Was it?
I think he went from 2 strikers to 1.
It's because he went with 1 striker.
He scored 2 goals in his first game, and I know it's season 1, and is he all that? He didn't do well in the last Super League, but brave decision. I know he was tinkering around with a formation, but very surprised with a striker that scored. Batistuta and obviously Tsigalko scored 4 goals between them, and he's completely dropped Maxim there, hasn't he?
Yeah.
So,
and it was his birthday as well. It was his birthday as well this week, wasn't it? I think, wasn't it? Oh, maybe not in the game. Someone else maybe had a birthday. I thought it was his birthday. Either way, quite surprising to see that as well. Yeah. But of course, he was trying something completely different with this attacking.
He nearly pulled it off, didn't he? At the end of the day, he came right back into it. Did it get back to 2-2? I think, and I actually thought he was going to nick it, but credit to
Kalusny got the winner. He came. I
think I've got my halves mixed up there.
Yeah, I
He
think
played well in the first half. It's the second half.
it was the second half he came back in, but then Kalusny, I mean, after the injuries to both, I mean, that's also something that's going to put some doubt in Craig's mind, I think, going into next week. I mean, he's put all this effort into creating a new tactic, and then he's got Scholes, who I think was an important part of the tactic in that AMC role. He's injured for only for a week, so he'll be missing him for this game, and Sean Davis, who, I mean, he's out for a month, so there's something to think about there with regards to the tactic.
Are you taking notice of the comments, Martin?
Sorry?
Are you taking notice of the comments?
Yeah, but all this spying, yeah. I mean, you can't. I can't show you all the stats of all the various people's players, Ian. But but nice try.
Just on the match report, Martin, was Kalusny's goal a long ranger? Because in my own personal sense, I always have him on long shots, and he always seems to score quite a few. So
no, it was a header. It was a header from a dire cross.
No, it was a header. Well, maybe it was a 40-yard header. Who knows? But just something I always have Kalusny doing. I love having him as picking him up as a free on second season. But yeah, anchor in the midfield, really angry player, pisses everyone off, leaves after a season. But yeah, often chips in with lots of goals, lots of long ranges. But
yeah. Last comment on that. BTEC, they changed 3 people at the back. That's kind of brave. I mean, I know it was shocking and Stam got a 4 in the first game, but still, 3 changes at the back, a full back, and both the central defenders were new for BTEC for this one. To be fair, they're not bad players. I mean, Christian Chiwu, not bad to have in there.
I think he had to do it to make a point. I don't think you can. I think Stam, you can't play a 4 and expect to play in the next game. You can't let 6 goals, or however many goals, 4 goals was it against 9 men. He had to change it, so I can see why he's done it.
True.
And again, similar to Ian at Midlothian, he's stacked at the back kind of thing. He's got loads of class defenders there. And yeah, and my office is open for trading business from December because that's where I'm short. So it's a bit of a call out there. That's what we need. We need to discuss something then.
Well, Marvin Andrews and Eddie Pope are still available.
Well, you'll have to have a word with Fifey, see if you'll let go of Danny Mills. You never know. Could be a right back revolution on the way. Last week we went for. Who did we go for team of the week for the midweek reviews team of the week last week? I forgot that actually.
Churchtown.
Did we go for Churchtown? That's right. Yeah.
Kieran Churchtown, definitely.
He's not getting it this week, is he?
No,
it's Jamie and the Dragons for me.
With the 3-0.
Yeah, I think he is Jamie or Ian at Midlothian getting his. Him and Andreas getting the first wins in the Super League, but yeah, just for the 3-0 against one of the league favourites. You've got to give it to Jamie, I think.
Yeah, I think if you're attacking, I mean, call it a fluke, call it a Robbie Keane scenario, or whatever you want. But if you're attacking midfielder who's up against Patrick Vieira, gets 3 goals, then you've had a good game. You keep a clean sheet against Arsley with the attacking players they have, then I think that's fair. So I'm glad you both agree, and I agree as well. This is kind of unusual, but so that's 2 weeks in a row that we've been quite sort of aligned on that. If we then have a look at next week's fixture, so this is obviously going to be quite exciting.
I'm laughing at these comments. I'm on speakerphone, guys, so I'll speak a bit louder and a bit closer to my phone now. Just tell me in future. Right.
Only the most professional streams here. That's what we're going for. We're there's got to be an award somewhere that we can go for with this. Let's start. So next week we're back to starting at the top, or maybe we should take them randomly. I try to mix it up a little bit, but we'll probably just go from the top next week. So we've got Arsenal Celtic at home to Somerset Sloths first. Ryan, how do you see that one going? Ardsley, are they going to be able to bounce back, or is Sloths, are they on this upward trajectory now where they might finally score a goal?
Well, the home side of the favourites, aren't they? So yeah, I think last week Sloths improved, but maybe not enough to take on Astor. They might improve again, but away from home against Ardsley is a tough fixture. So going to the peg, I think it'll be unlikely. they might get a goal, but I think they're unlikely they come up with the 3 points. I mean, I said it before. Asley have got probably the strongest squad, and maybe even the strongest first 11 in the league. Maybe not the strongest manager, but they've got to be favourites there.
Yeah, Palmer. Anything to add to that? Do you agree? Arsenal gonna take that one? Or?
I think Somerset will get the first goal, and I think it'll be another night where Hodgie's got his head in his hands. Maybe a late equaliser for Somerset. Is what I'm going with there.
Right. Okay. Oh, very, very brave. This is a bit of a clash. Last season's losing finalist manager against the second place team in the league manager, if we can call it. Does that make sense? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Oh, good. Palmer, if I come to you first for this one, Alf or Craig?
Yeah, I think Alf is favourite for this, just in the sense that I think since the old Wibwob gate, I think Craig is still to fight. Well, I'm sure he'll be tinkering away at home there, but I just think Alf's sort of steady formation, you know what you're going to get there, I think, and he's probably got the better side on paper. I think Alf's got to be favourite for this one. I think Craig will come back into it as the season goes on, but I think just early days, Alf's just got the beating of him here.
Mm-hmm. Ryan, how do you see this one going? You think Craig will land on a good formation, or do you think he'll still be tinkering when he comes up against Alf?
I think he'll still be tinkering. If he goes with what he went with this week again on Sunday, then he'll get absolutely hammered. So I think he'll be tinkering. Whether he'll land on something which is capable of beating Alf by the weekend, I think is unlikely. But yeah, I think he'll be in the right half of the league come the end of the season. He knows what he's doing.
Yeah, I mean, there's too many wide. I mean, I know you need to have wide players to beat Alf, I think, but that's maybe taken it a little bit far with the with the two fullbacks in the corners and the other things he had going on. So well, we'll see how that one goes. And then Ryan, it's yourself at home to Chudley Cannons. That's going to be a challenge, isn't it?
Well, of course it is. Yeah, 2 wins out of 2. Kind of alluded to earlier that he obviously knows what he's doing. I don't think he's got the strongest squad on paper, but he obviously knows what he's doing and he's got them playing. I think there's probably one of the toughest home games you can have. But yeah, I've had a bit of a tinker this week. I'll have another more tinker before the weekend, see if I can come up with something. But I'm going to back myself in every game this season. So, I think I'll definitely get some goals, providing I don't get another red card in the first few minutes. So, if I can get a couple of goals, then anything can happen.
Mm-hmm. Joe, what do you think? Timmy too strong for the Phoenix, or?
He's been tinkering away, hasn't he? He's got Tsigalko getting 100 goals with his new formation in the Dutch league.
Oh yeah.
But as I always say in the Super League, I think winning three games on the is a little bit of a collector's item. Oh, it's certainly is for me. I think this will end in a draw. I think I just can't. Yeah, I don't really have much more to say than that. I think Ryan will put out a good side. I think it'll be a good game. This, but it's just that third win in a row. It's a
tricky one to get. Yeah, and he's away as well.
I think we've alluded to it before. Yeah, I think the home advantage is going to mean a lot this season. I think definitely more than in previous Super Leagues. I think 11 out of 14 games so far have been home wins, 1 draw and just 2 aways. Yeah. I think it'll take some performance to win away. So I mean, I'll be going for the win. I back myself for the win, but whether I take a draw at this moment in time, maybe.
We'll see. The next up, we've got Kieran, who's hosting. I was going to say in Dublin or Argentina or wherever he currently is. Well, anyway, let's hope the team stays in one position while the manager's traveling the world, so Andreas knows where to take his boys for this one. Personally, I think this could be quite an interesting game. I'm not sure. It's 2 really strong teams. Anyone want to hazard a guess at who's going to take the 3 points here, or is this going to be a draw?
I think this is commentator's curse for Kieran. I think Valen will win this game. I think Churchtown were just so bad last game. maybe a little bit of a hangover there. Valen have put in 2 good performances so far, so I'm going with a Valen win this one, and a very sombre Kieran on co-coms. You may have to do this one.
Well, he's not. I can exclusively reveal that he's not on co-coms for the next game.
Oh, is it not? Sorry, I missed that.
No, it'll be if all goes to plan. By that I mean if his wife figures out how to install it, the Chudley Cannons manager will be
of course.
will be joining me.
Well, in that case, then Bolton are going to win next game, and Churchtown will win this one.
Right, Ryan, your thoughts on this one?
I like what Andreas has done with his team. I think he was solid against me. He was unlucky in the first week. I think Kieran's a top manager, top squad. I think I can see a score draw, 1-1, 2-2. The 2 good teams, 2 teams which I expect to be up there towards the end of the season. I mean, I think it's one that I don't like sitting on the fence with, but it's definitely one that could go either way. I'll go with a score draw.
Jamie's got another home game coming up here. He welcomes the Brazilians to Jurassic. I can't remember what I called the stadiums. Either way, he's got the Brazilians coming to see him. I mean, they scored 4 goals, but they also let in quite a few. Will they be able to stop Robbie Keane? What do you think, Ryan? Do you think the Dragons will get 2 in a row here? I mean, they really need some. We're looking at Jamie's side, and they've got really good players, really good defensive players, and if they can get the goals, do you think there might be 3 points for them here, or do you think Hooligans are gonna turn it around and Ronaldo, Ronaldinho, and all these guys are just gonna keep pouring on the shots until they get the goals?
Unless Tsigalko changes something, I think Jamie will win. I think as you said, he's solid defensively. His players can nick goals, and I think Hooligans are too weak at the back. Unless he switches something around, I think that half track, it just isn't working in this league. So he needs to have a look in the mirror, have a look at his team, and see what else he can do. Because I think that for what we've all kind of said, he's definitely got one of the strongest attacking lineups on paper. And he's not got a point, and he's not he's got 1 point from possible 6, and he's not looked like winning either game really. I mean, you guys called. I mean, even with 10 men, you were calling that Panathinaikos were going to get an equaliser on the.
It looked like it, to be honest.
Yeah, he's not got enough at the back.
Okay. Well, we'll see. Palmer, do you agree? You think Jamie will get the win?
I completely agree with everything Ryan said there. I think Jamie will get the win here. Just he's on the back of a good win. He was at home last time, wasn't he, Jamie? So yeah, another home game. That, or it's going to, the fact that he's been involved in 7 goals in 2 games, and Hools have let in 10 in 2. It'll either be that or it'll be 0-0, won't it?
Yeah, there is always that. Next one's an intriguing one, I think. Ian's at home again, and this time he welcomes BTEC. Last time BTEC were on the road was obviously the 4-2 red card fiasco at Ardsley. They'll be looking to do a little bit better here, especially considering they picked up such a good result against the Hornets. What do you think? Joe? Midlothian, they're going to squeeze out another 1-0 here, or is it going to be a draw, or will BTEC squeeze through with a win?
I don't know why, but I think Midlothian will win this one. I think it's probably just based on home advantage. BTEC were good last time out. I don't know why, but I just think if it was a betting man, I'd say Midlothian on this one.
And Ryan, what do you think? BTEC or Midlothian?
It's a tough one. The Battle of the Ians. I think I'll go with a home victory 2-0. I think his defence is solid. I think he'll get a goal. He's at home. I'm not convinced by BTEC away from home, especially after that first game against Ardsley. I know they bounced back against Odds last week, but home victory 2-0.
They might bring Stan back. You never know. We'll see what happens there. And then Joe, The one we've all been waiting for. Is it too early in the season for such a clash between two such iconic teams as Palmerston Icons and Swindon Devils?
Well, we're being very nice to it. Well, Fifey probably doesn't think I am on these broadcasts, but I'm trying to be nice to him. I'm trying to be positive. It's we've buried the hatchet. Too early to say. I mean, if it's in 20 games' time, this fixture, and we're either both at the top or probably unlikely, or both at the bottom, trying not to finish bottom, then the needle may come out. I think it's a little bit more of a slightly friendlier pre-match. He could go all nasty, as could I in the coming days. But listen, I'll be disappointed not to beat Swindon this game out. I mean, we're at home. We've scored 7 goals in 2 games. They are a little bit leaky. I think they've let in 7 in 2 games.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm not going to say what we're going to do. So I've done that before and had egg on my face last season. So, as Ryan said, I always back myself when we're at home. I think we had the best home record last season, despite not finishing in the top 6.
Mm-hmm.
Always been, relatively good at home. So I have to back myself here.
Yeah.
I think that's all. I'll say a narrow 2-1 win here.
Yeah. And from a neutral's perspective, Ryan, as neutral as you can be in this scenario, do you see Joe getting the home win or?
No, I think he'll bottle it as per. Every comes into a big game, he'll throw it all away. So
is that your dog fight?
I can see Palmerston Icons winning first half 3-0 and then getting beat, conceding 4 in second half. 4-3. 4-3 to 5 in Swindon.
Your dog thinks you're talking out of your backside. It's clearly sticking up for Fifey there.
Good job we're not both on the next week's review show, Ryan.
Right, so we'll all be looking forward to the Toby Carvery derby there at the end. If we can be serious for a couple of seconds here before we finish up, I can see there's a bunch of the lads that are on the chat. So thanks very much, guys, for hanging with us for the whole show. Substitutions during the game, in terms of injuries, I mean, we're not going to go tactical changes during the game. Can be posted in the comments because that's going to be a nightmare. But in the event of a red card or like a super awful performance at halftime or something like that, someone getting a 4 or 5, should we let the manager, or is it just for red cards and injuries? Should we let the manager come in and say something? You can write in the comments, people. What do you think as well? We're watching.
Yeah, can I? I mean,
you can start.
I've been giving this some thought, and I think you're dead right. I think the sort of you could open up a hornet's nest here with this one, where for me it should just be red cards and injuries, and even with a red card, I think you should only be allowed. I think you should be able to then put the players, on the comments. You should be able to move the players around wherever you want within reason, so it doesn't get really massively complicated and time consuming. What I am against is if you've stated that you want an attacking formation and you've got all individual player formations, instructions, I don't think you should then be taking them off running with the ball. And I think whatever those player instructions are at the start of the game, you need to go with them. You can maybe drop the arrows with players advancing, but I just think you open yourself up to just a lot of grey areas as to kind of where.
As you can see, I can't even handle the 3 halftime instructions I get from the 14 of you per week. So to get any hopes of me getting it right, actually during the game, I'm with you there. I think it should be limited to substitutions.
I think you should only really be able to maybe move a maximum. If somebody gets a red card, you should maybe be able to move 2 players around. Because I mean, let's just say you're 2-0 up and you're in the 50th minute and a red card happens, you could instruct you to then move every single player into, 5 across the back with 4 sort of DMs in there as well. And I think that kind of, to hold out for a 2-0 win. So my view is I think you do it kind of a little bit like what Boise did, in a way that you you make the changes, but you fundamentally don't massively change the shape of the team.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was kind of not at all disagreeing with what Joe said there. I think it's when the game actually stops. So you've got half time, you've got a red card, and you've got an injury. They're the 3 times the game actually stops. And if you've got someone live on chat saying, "Can I swap that person for this person?" I don't think that's too much of an issue.
Mm-hmm.
I think with red cards, I completely agree. Yeah, if it's like the example of my game at the weekend, I wasn't too unhappy with what you did, Martin. Probably what I would have done was I would have probably put Alex in net and then swapped him for Casillas and just kept the 2 wide players. But I couldn't complain one bit with what you did. I don't agree there should be wholesale changes. Yeah, I think the idea is if I've got a left wing back injured and I've got Zambrata on the bench, I think it kind of makes sense that guess what, he's going to come on a left wing back. I don't think I don't see what more we could really want as kind of managers make the obvious kind of change.
But if you're 2-0 down, say at that time, Ryan, and that happens, what I wouldn't then say is, oh well, let's bring another striker on for him and then start changing the shape of the team. I think you need to do exactly what you said there, is bring almost a like for like player on, irrespective of what the score is, because you fundamentally, an injury could, if you're winning a game and one of your players gets injured, you could just make it uber defensive, couldn't you, and hold out for the win? Where you can't actually do that.
I was going to say that was what would be my main argument, that we can't be in a situation where you can change, because it's as I have not played the game online as much as many of you guys have, but in my experience, playing with hard tackling is an advantage. It makes your, especially if you play with pressing, you can combine it with different things. Hard tackling is generally a good idea, but it comes with the risk of a red card, and I don't think you should be allowed, so to speak, to say, oh, I'm just going to play hard tackling, full press for the first 60 minutes, get 1-0 up. If I get a red card, that's fine. I'll just go defensive and put 10 men behind the ball for the rest of the game. So I just don't want to be in the situation where we change something tactically. I can completely understand that if you get if you've got a 2-0 lead, you get a striker sent off, or sorry, your goalkeeper sent off at 60 minutes. You've got 2 strikers. You swap one of your strikers and put a goalkeeper on instead. That's not rocket science. I would be happy to be left to make those decisions though, rather than to allow people to change the tactic or the formation during the game. But at the same time, I would also be happy to obviously have some pointers, because in some cases people don't have. I mean, I don't know why. You've got 24 players to choose from. If you've got a DMRLC whatever on the bench, put him on there instead of just a DML, so that if your right-sided one gets injured, then it's more obvious to who you should replace him with. But it's a difficult one to draw the line with how far we go in there.
So someone, the suggestion would be basically for injury, or even a half-time substitution, it's got to be like for like, no messing with any formation. If there's a red card, you're allowed 1 positional change, 1. And that would kind of say, it would keep then no one's messing around with any of the individual player tactics. No one can start doing X, Y, and Z. I'm just trying to look at the comments here as I'm talking. I don't think anyone's suggesting really that we're making wholesale formational changes. So for me, half-time and injuries, you've got to make a like for like. If you've got a red card, especially if you've got a red card to a goalkeeper, a centre defender, or a lone striker, you're allowed to make 1 positional change. I think that's a fair limit. I don't know what your opinion on that is, Martin.
Yeah, I mean, all I will say to it is, maybe I don't want to give the people. I mean, I want people to have an incentive. I mean, the whole reason why we're talking about it is that it's also an incentive for people to follow the broadcast, to watch the game. But there will be people who take part in the game on a grander scale or in a big way, but perhaps aren't able to watch the stream for whatever reason, time differences or God knows what. And it's perhaps a little bit. I don't want to get into a situation where we're giving people like a huge advantage by being on stream, that you can kind of like sit on the sideline and shout instructions almost. I mean, Timmy points out that he gives instructions prior to the game, what should happen with a red card, what should happen with, I can't remember, not with injuries, because I think he chooses his subs quite wisely. But
I think I did that in the before the first game, and I got a bulletin, didn't I?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on the level. I know, but it the level of detail. I think. I mean, I also need to find my feet in this with how much I can handle, during the games. As you can see, and as I think I mentioned to you, Ryan, as well. It's not because I don't want to. It's because I'm like not capable. Yeah.
No,
So
I
it's not because I
playing
don't
devil's
want to
advocate,
make.
you know that.
It's not because I don't want to make your decision, make your, the proposed changes. It's just so I keep track of them, so I don't end up in a situation where, I mean, I think Boyce he made like one mistake last year, and he was like heartbroken when he forgot to like take Frank Lampard off for me or whatever. I take it maybe a little bit more lightly. So Henri will come on occasionally, whether you want him to or not. But that's also a balance that we have to kind of strike here, because remember, I have to note down every single little one, and I don't want to have to sit and flick through bits of paper and things like that when we
I
get
think
to
for
that.
me, in terms of substitutions, I think looking at the sort of production qualities and people watching this, for me, I think I'm against kind of halftime substitutions, because there might be somebody on chat and telling you what to do, but it could just delay. Half times could be going from lasting a couple of minutes with Jamie talking about what's going on to 5 minutes as we start messing around with stuff. I think if you want a halftime change, you need to be really specific before the game, i.e. if any of my midfielders are scoring a 5, bring so and so on type thing. I just don't think you should be changing players midway through just because they're having a bad score.
And as you saw with Robbie Keane, I think he was like a 6 at halftime or 7 or something, and Fifey and I were like, yeah, he's not an AMC, he's terrible, and then he scored 3 in the second half. So you never know what's going to happen. You never know what's going to happen.
Yeah, Shearer could have bagged a hat trick to me in that second.
Yeah, I know. He was well on his way, I think. Yeah, I mean, thanks very much for your ideas, and I'll read through the comments as well, and then I'll come up with a proposal, and we can perhaps agree to that prior to next weekend. I don't think it'll be anything revolutionary, but I do think there should be a little bit of an incentive, I think, for people watching live to come up with a quick comment, and especially if I'm in doubt. Yeah, so in 99, maybe not 90, in 90% of the cases, it's quite obvious what I'm going to be doing. But if we are in these situations where people perhaps don't have cover, especially the ones that play with fullbacks, if you don't have a DL or a DR to come in, then maybe it's a little bit, should you change something, or you don't have an AMC for some reason. Some people don't have an attacking midfield on the bench. I'm not sure why, but we'll see. I'll take into consideration what you've said. I'll read through the comments, and then I'll come up with a suggestion, see if we can agree on it.
It is difficult, and when you've only got 4 subs and one of them is usually a goalkeeper, it is hard to often get full cover across with your other 3 subs.
Absolutely. No, I understand that.
The reason I like Okoronkwo in my side is he can play anywhere across the back. He gets in ahead. If I'm playing one at the back, he gets in ahead of Marvin Andrews every time, just because he's just a DC. So.
And I could bring him on at left back when Joe Gassels got sent off. It was perfect.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no, I see your point. I see everyone's point on it. I'll try and find a reasonable way to deal with this, to give people that little bit of incentive to join the stream. Not that it seems to be a problem. There's plenty of people on there, but in general. I think that's pretty much it, guys. What your pick of the games for next week? Which ones do you look forward to the most? Pam, I'm not going to ask you because you're going to have to say your own. I'll give you that. I'm looking forward to that one as well. Ryan, anything that stands out for you? A big clash. I mean, Aston Hoddesdon, perhaps.
I'd probably say Churchtown versus Valen. I think there'll be two teams at relatively similar level. Obviously, I mentioned there's probably a score draw, but I think it really could go either way there. I think you've got two good teams. I think will be there or thereabouts at the end. I think it's a good clash.
That'd be a good one. Absolutely. Well, that'd be something for people to look forward to in the middle then, and then we'll finish off the evening with a clash with the recently renamed Toby Carberry derby. We'll definitely be looking forward to that one. Anything else?
I'm gonna use the turkey.
I'm not saying a thing. I think what else have we got to look forward to this week to keep us entertained until Sunday? We've hopefully got Rob's Q&A session coming up. I'm not sure if the questions were any better or worse than they were for Fifey, but it should be with Rob. You never really know, but I'm guessing entertaining is the word I'm looking for here.
I cannot wait for that. That's what I have to say. I'm not sure how he's going to put it up on whether or not he's doing it on YouTube or just obviously a Twitter video in the last 2 minutes. So hopefully he'll let us know how he's going to put that out, because I'd like to put that on the telly, because that could be the evening. Well, it will be the evening entertainment. I don't know. Is it tomorrow night he's doing that?
I'm not sure. I think he's.
I think it's Thursday, he said.
I think he's busy with cooking. So we'll see when he.
Well,
when
I'm
he
not
gets
doing
time.
anything midweek, so I think that's whatever I'm doing.
So Rob Palmer's not doing anything. Could you provide some entertainment, please? Ryan, anything else from you?
No, I'll probably put a presser out before the game on Sunday. Just one of my little walks down the street where I talk shite. But apart from that, I'm looking forward to Rob. Looking forward to the games. Who's on co-coms this Sunday?
It's Tim Christopher himself.
So let's hope that commentator's curse continues.
Yeah, well, we'll see. Anyway, guys, thank you very much for spending how much was it? An hour and 20 minutes in my company again. It was a pleasure as always, and it adds to our library of digital gold that we've got up on YouTube now. So thanks very much for that. Thanks for your time, and I'll speak to you again at the weekend, I guess, and we'll see how the third round of the Super League, what it'll throw up of results. Will we have Astor Athletic and Chudley Cannons isolating themselves with 9 points at the top? Will Sloths get off the bottom? Will Swindon and Joe share the points? Maybe we'll have to wait and see. So thanks very much for your time, guys.
Thanks a lot, man.
Take care. I'll speak to you soon. Thanks to everyone in the comments as well. Good night.